symptoms of diphtheria, a highly contagious and often deadly respiratory ailment. The doctor's small supply of antitoxin has expired. He issues an urgent plea for more of the life-saving serum. It is his only hope of averting a full-scale epidemic. Today, diphtheria is prevented with early childhood inoculations. In 1925, it could only be treated with an antitoxin. The disease could appear to strike at random, but in fact, its transfer was more insidious. A child's school book or glove can easily carry the disease from one host to another until entire families are infected. The risk to a closed community like Nome was easy to imagine. Just 7 years earlier in 1918, a worldwide pandemic of Spanish influenza had spread through Europe and the U.S. It resulted in the deaths of more than 20 million people. Alaska had been hit hard.
It was just a real calamity, probably the worst calamity that had ever befallen Alaska. All along the Seward Peninsula, entire villages disappeared.
Now, an outbreak of diphtheria could threaten all of northwest Alaska. Without the antitoxin, the death rate for those children infected could reach 75%.
It was in the dead of winter. It was January. There were all these conditions that were working against them. Nome was surrounded by native villages that included almost 10,000 individuals. And so it wasn't just Nome that was in trouble.
Dr. Curtis Welch consults with Nome's mayor and moves quickly to quarantine the community. Everyone suspected of having the disease is kept behind closed doors. Notices are posted with a warning to keep out. Radio messages are relayed to the territorial governor of Alaska and to Washington, D.C., stating, an epidemic of diphtheria is now inevitable. Welch and Nome's mayor put out the call for 1 million units of antitoxin, enough to treat hundreds of citizens. Within days, newswires across the country pick up the story. Suddenly, people as far away as New York City are rallying to save the children of Nome, Alaska.
You have all the elements that make for a good story. You have people who are in danger. You have an isolated, somewhat romantic community, Nome, Alaska. You have children. So it's kind of easy to see why this would become a worldwide sensation.
It was one of those first stories that the country was able to follow as the story unfolded.
January 25th, 3 days after the first call for help went out, 1,000 miles away, the Alaskan Railroad Hospital in Anchorage locates 300,000 units of the antitoxin. It's far short of the million units requested, but enough to stave off an epidemic. The problem now is how to get the precious medicine to Nome in time. Getting there by sea is impossible. In the middle of winter, Nome is icebound. Flying the serum would be risky. Only a few bush pilots have ever flown into remote towns like Nome.
There had been a number of airplanes brought up. Enterprising, daredevil individuals decided they'd try it and see if they could live.
Back in 1920, a U.S. Army aircraft made a 9,000-mile flight round trip from New York to Nome and back. Most of Nome came out to view the spectacle.
The way of life on the dog trails was just about to be replaced by the airplane.
People could see the writing on the wall in the future. The dog team would not be the prime means of getting from place to place in the winter. But really, that future was not here yet.
In 1925, no pilot had ever attempted a flight to Nome during Alaska's frigid winter. A prominent newspaper editor thinks it can be done. William Thompson of the Fairbanks Daily News-Miner launches a campaign to fly the serum in.
W.F. Thompson had become a big believer in aviation. And he was one of the investors in an early aviation company. Now, Thompson and some of his compatriots here determined that one way of getting this antitoxin to Nome would be by air.
But Fairbanks' only 2 airplanes are World War I vintage biplanes. Both are open cockpit models that have already been dismantled and crated for the winter.
temperatures ranging from 20 below to 60 below zero. And in the open cockpit airplanes of that day, it would have been a monumental challenge just to get it up into the air.
The territorial governor, Scott Bone, knows the attempt would be risky even under perfect conditions. But in the windy, sub-zero temperatures, it could be fatal. Even if the pilots are willing to risk their lives, the governor is unwilling to risk the serum. So he orders the serum to be sent by train from Anchorage to the end of the rail line in Nenana, Alaska. From here, it will be a 700-mile mission for man and his dogs.
Really, when you look at it, this was a no-brainer. While dog sleds may not be high-tech, it was elegant and it worked. It had been developed over thousands of years.
From Nenana, dog sled teams will take the serum across the barren Alaska interior, traveling along the mail route known as the Iditarod Trail. The trip usually takes up to 25 days. Governor Bone hopes this trip can be done in much less time. He recruits the best teams around.
And they were, for the most part, male drivers. These were the most trusted kings of the trail, but these guys often would travel, in all sorts of temperatures and blizzards to deliver the U.S. mail.
But this journey will be far different.
The winter of 1925 was just exceptionally severe. Temperatures were, ranging down to 60 below and colder, and there's no room for error at those temperatures.
Coming up next on When Weather Changed History, a fleet of heroic dog teams sets off in a daring race against time.
Through the storm and beyond, the Weather Channel, the Winter Weather Authority. Now you're local on the 8s. Frigid cold, blustery winds, and snow just right for sledding. Winter is flight delays, school closings, and ski reports for the best peaks anywhere. Winter is a time of contrast, and only the Weather Channel can keep you safe and warm throughout the season. On air with live reports from the hardest hit locations. Online with expert analysis of incoming storms and cold snaps. And on the go to keep you ahead of the cold. From forecasting the severe to locating fresh powder. Stay with the Weather Channel, the Winter Weather Authority.
January 27th, 1925. A relay race is on to deliver life-saving diphtheria antitoxin across nearly 700 miles of Alaskan wilderness. A high-pressure system is moving across the interior, bringing with it a blast of Arctic cold. The 20-pound package of antitoxin arrives by train at the end of the rail line in the town of Nenana. It's handed over to the first musher to be transported to Nome. More than 80 years later, this historic event is remembered and retraced. It begins when a ceremonial package of the life-saving serum arrives in Nenana aboard the Alaska Railroad. The conductor places the package into the hands of an official who hands it off to the first musher to leave Nenana. 150 sled dogs begin the trip to Nome. From Nenana, the trail stretches across miles of frozen river and then follows the wind-battered coastline to Nome. Today, the distance is nearly 800 miles. The weather on this route can be unpredictable and deadly.
Every year the trail changes, and every year the trail changes depending on the wind conditions and then the ice conditions.
The dream weather conditions are between 10 below and 20 above. That's when the dogs run at their peak. In reality, there can be very, very extreme weather conditions out there.
The temperature on this day is 33 degrees below zero. It is bitter, dangerous cold, but not as dangerous as it was in 1925 when the first dog team led by Wild Bill Shannon pulled away from the Nenana Railroad with the antitoxin.
He left the Nenana station with his dogs. It was already 50 degrees below zero. This was incredibly dangerous temperatures to be driving your dog team.
Even so, Wild Bill Shannon is determined to help get the serum to Nome in record-breaking time. The plan calls for Shannon to make the first leg of a relay, a 52-mile journey from Nenana to the next mail stop in Tolovana. A series of handoffs to fresh dog sled teams will allow the antitoxin to travel around the clock. Meantime, another team will set off from Nome to intercept the life-saving serum in the village of Nulato. This team will be headed by renowned musher Leonard Seppala.
Leonard Seppala might have been the most prominent dog musher in Alaska. He had come to Alaska in 1900 as a Norwegian immigrant.
His lead dog, Togo, is also famous for his leadership and ability to sense danger. Seppala and Togo will make the trip from Nome to Nulato and back again. Their 630-mile round trip is the longest and most dangerous leg of the relay. Togo and Seppala had previously made this same run in a record-setting 4 days. But there is danger every step of the way, and this time, hundreds of lives are at stake. Coming up on When Weather Changed History, mushers face their first obstacle, 30 miles of frozen river, which can harbor a nearly undetectable danger known as drum ice.
You might have a chasm of 12 feet or 15 feet in depth, like a crystalline tomb, and a dog driver or his entire team can fall through a very wide opening in the ice.
This network and your local cable company are supporting education by bringing you the preceding Cable in the Classroom program.
My house wants me to live here for a long time.
My retirement savings have places to go.
Plans, dreams, they're important to you.
Our girls should focus on their future, not ours.
But you can't overlook the possibility that down the road, if you needed some kind of long-term care, everything you've planned for could be at risk.
So I got long-term care insurance.
Help protect your plans with AARP long-term care insurance from Genworth Financial. It can help cover the high costs of long-term care, like assisted living or in-home long-term care.
It's a choice we made for each other and our kids.
Call now to get your free information kit. The national average cost of care is well over $75,000 a year. And generally, it's not covered by health insurance or Medicare. AARP-endorsed long-term care insurance can help protect your assets, your family, the things you've worked hard to build. Choose from a range of affordable plans, including plans with nursing facility and in-home long-term care coverage. And typically, the younger and healthier you are when you apply, the lower your rates will be. Call for your free information kit to get started. These plans are offered by Genworth Life Insurance Company, a leader in long-term care insurance with over 35 years experience. And they're endorsed by AARP. But you don't need to be a member to call. Long-term care is just one of those things many of us may have to face. If you have dreams, and we all do, now is the time to protect them.
I I enjoy today because tomorrow has a plan.